What is up, everybody? Lord Lorcan here on Unholier Than Thou. Thanks for tuning in. I'm so glad you're here. This was a fantastic interview with Eric Vernor, aka Corvus Nocturnum. But you know the saying, when it rains it pours. It's absolutely pouring right now. So, due to a few technical difficulties, I am unable to bring you the video part of the interview. But I'm a man of my word, and I will release it on the time and date that I said I would. So I will be giving you the audio. Here's the thing. I've included a lot of visual aspects with it. So you're going to see a lot of his artwork, a lot of his books, pictures of him, all this stuff, just to kind of keep you into it and everything a little bit. So don't fret. I'm fixing my issues. Stick with me. It can only get better from here, trust me. So I appreciate you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, this is Eric Vernor, and you're watching Unholier Than Thou.
What is up, everybody? Lord Lorcan here with Unholier Than Thou. Tonight I'm with Corvus Nocturnum, aka Eric Vernor. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem, man. It's a freaking honor to have you on. Man, you are a busy, busy man.
Yeah, I've got a lot of projects in the works, from writing, publishing other people, to new art concepts that just pop into my head at random, keeps me from being bored or if I get stuck, at any one given point. And, there's always film projects that I've got on the back burner.
Man, God. And I'm sitting here stressing over this one project. Oh, man. I tell you, you're a painter, a writer. I mean, you do documentaries and you travel around and you speak to people. I mean, it's just, and aren't you a bounty hunter too or something?
Yeah, I was doing that for a while. I've got bachelor's in criminal justice and wanted to make use of it. But unfortunately, due to my age, I wasn't eligible for any federal or local, law enforcement type job. I reached the cutoff age a decade ago, and they didn't warn me of that when I enrolled in college.
Oh, wow.
So after the Army, first responder training, and 4 years of college and getting honors with it, then it was a little bit of a waste. And then a friend of mine came along, and he was doing that already, and asked me if I would come hook up with him in my spare time, and help him out on a few warrants here and there. So I did.
That sounds like fun. I've always wanted to do something like that. I'm myself, and I'm in law enforcement. I'm a correctional officer. But
Okay.
it's and I've thought about going back to school to further that and everything, but I don't like the prison too much, so you got to be you got to be a certain creature to work there, and I'm absolutely that creature, but it's more the politics of the place rather than the inmates. I can deal with inmates all day long. It's the bullshit from the state. So
Yeah, I mean, I had considered that, while I was in school, to try to use it as an internship, because I did probation for a while, and I enjoyed the fact that I got to go out there and actually touch the lives of the people, and some of them weren't so bad. They just did stupid things.
yeah,
Right. Sometimes it's the policymakers that make life extra difficult.
oh yeah. I tell you, man, I get a kick seeing some of these guys who get 5, 6, 7 years for rape, and they get 25 years for selling marijuana.
Hmm.
That's just
Now that
crazy.
it's legal in so many states, it's kind of bizarre.
Oh yeah, it's really crazy to me. I'm like, it's backwards. It's so backwards.
It kind of fits in the thinning the herd. If you want to do something stupid and abuse yourself, especially when it comes to harder drugs or whatnot, that's your right. But if you force yourself on somebody else, then that should have greater consequences.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ah, well, I got a bunch of questions, man. So
All right.
the first one is, um, during your Hail Thyself DVD, you said you went from being homeless to owning multiple businesses. Tell us a little bit about that journey and how you overcame those struggles, man.
Well, I guess part of the journey itself was realizing that when you truly hit rock bottom, there's nowhere else to go, and I never wanted to face that again. It became the driving force behind my will every time I did accomplish something to push forward. Um, that's why I went into basic training, and everything else was, roof over my head, quick shelter, as opposed to going off and, to the prison system by doing something dumb, you know. So everything in life, as I keep saying in my video and my books, is everything in life is choice. Everything that you think you can or can't accomplish is, what makes you no different than anybody else out there who's a billionaire versus somebody else who, says, "Oh, woe is me" all the time.
Yeah.
You can wallow in self-pity and lay in the gutter, or you can, push past all the bad stuff. I mean, I cite other examples like, there are iconic names like Gene Simmons, Oprah Winfrey. These people were all very poor at one time, and yet they knew they were destined for greatness.
Yeah.
I think it's that inner spark, and I think I always had something like that. I mean, I never said, "Well, I'm going to be a millionaire," or "I'm going to be," you know. At that time, I never knew that I would write a book. I never knew that my name would be all around the globe. And people bought my artwork, and books in China, Australia. Weirdest places I never would have thought.
Nice.
And stuff like that you don't think about when you're starting off.
Yeah.
But you believe in yourself and keep going, and you make the right connections, and you treat people good. I harp on that a lot, especially in the new expanded edition that I'm finishing now. Is I was watching the cooking show Chopped while eating dinner tonight, and this one guy was a complete asshole. And even though he was a good cook, I mean, he got on the show itself, but it was his attitude that made everybody there. You could tell it in their faces that they wanted the guy gone. It wasn't just his fellow competitors; it was, the hosts and the judges and everything. And it's like you could be the greatest human being, in the world, skill wise, but if you have a terrible attitude, it's not going to help you.
Yeah.
I've always said you get ahead best in life by two things: who you know, and mostly do you prove it yourself to them in order to impress them enough for why should they give a shit to help you out?
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
you have to back it up and give them a reason to want to help you, even if they're your friends, because what you do and your attitude reflects on them if they do help you.
Yeah.
So you got to be the type of person that they want to help.
Yeah. Me, I think one of my biggest issues is I get an idea and I run after it and I do everything I can with it. But once I hit any kind of a standstill, the next idea is already rolling in motion. So I jump to that next idea, and then that other one gets kind of pushed to the back burner. So I end up with 15 other things that I haven't finished yet because I'm so amped up about my current idea. And it really
Right.
it sucks because I guess I'm just not that great at multitasking with a lot. I mean, now when I was in retail and stuff like that, I was fantastic at multitasking, but for some reason when it comes to tasks that may make any kind of crucial dent in my life, I think I kind of fall short. So,
Well,
but
maybe, I mean, some people are naturally good at being given a job and saying, hey, go do this. And they just dive in, they take over, they know what to do. But when it comes to other aspects of their daily life, it gets to be a struggle because they don't have that system in place.
yeah,
I think I'm the opposite, where I didn't like being in the military and I didn't like school because I was being told what to do. And I'm a very stubborn, strong willed individual.
yeah,
So, I kind of took my life in my own hands. And even though I made terrible mistakes here and there, I tried to learn from them
yeah,
and use that, as the example of what not to do. And the best advice I can give other people who are struggling is don't just come down and criticize, yourself. You'd have to be introspective and figure out what you're doing wrong, but don't beat yourself up over it because it's not going to fix anything. One of the best qualifiers is observe other people,
hmm.
see what they're doing wrong and how they're screwing up, and avoid doing what they do.
Yeah.
Don't be like the dumbass down the road, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I'd say over the past year, I've really focused on getting one thing done at a time and everything, and it helps me because organization is everything. It is key. When you're all scatterbrained and you don't know what's coming next and everything. Because I remember you talking, like, even in your DVD, you should have a plan for your next day. For your next moment. And I think that was one of the things that I was struggling with, is I didn't have a plan. I just had ideas floating around. So
Yeah, somebody asked me, why are you doing an expanded version? I said, well, for one, I didn't want to just take the original and throw it into a hardback and try to, milk it for more money, even though I know people want hardbacks because it stands up and it's a little more prestigious. People
yeah,
like them.
I'm
They're
one
not
of
just
them.
some. Yeah, it won't just be beat up in a backpack or whatever. They'll treasure it, and that's fine. But over the last 2 or 3 years that I've lectured on it, and I get asked questions, and it kind of makes me think, why didn't I cover that? And then there's other thoughts. I mean, I'm constantly learning and growing, like I advised people to do in the first place. So as I read other self-help books or listened to Tony Robbins or whatever, I mean, one of the people out there jokingly said I was the satanic Tony Robbins, of motivational speakers. And I'm like,
Hey, man.
okay, well, thanks.
I was gonna
Um,
say, yeah,
I
that's a
appreciate
compliment.
that. Yeah, I appreciated that. Um, but I came to realize there's certain things that I could have explained deeper, or given examples of, or things that I'd done in my life to kind of show people more how it works. Um, so this is 100 and maybe 120 pages more that I've added content here, and there are whole new sections where I'm actually giving people um, exercises and steps of how to accomplish these things a little clearer this time, to expand on the original thought so it's easier to follow and actually put into action. It's one thing to sit there and say, oh, you should do this, you'll have a better life. And it's another to actually walk them through it a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Some people need. I mean, and I fall into that sometimes too. Is even just wording. I mean, sometimes I'll be reading a book and get lost in the language. And I understand. It's everyone should work towards being more articulate and everything. And that's one thing that I struggle with, is my vocabulary isn't what it could be. Um, and sometimes, reading a book, I've got to have a dictionary with me, which is, I
There's
don't think
nothing
it's a
wrong with
bad
that.
thing, but
No, actually, it's good because you're teaching yourself. I mean,
yeah,
that's one thing a lot of people stop doing after they get out of school is they think, okay, I've reached the level of knowledge and that's it.
yeah,
They don't try.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
I think
we're all getting better.
of you.
Well, I'm telling you, the Master Thyself book, it's definitely next on my to buy list. But yeah, and I've made jokes. I've made jokes with you before and everything, that I might as well just start sending you like 10% of my pay. Because
No, we don't buy things.
I mean, it's crazy. I think I've bought 4 of your paintings and a couple of your books and your DVD and everything like that, and it's just, man, I go back and I look at your prior books and everything, and it's like, damn, I got to get that one and that one. So
Well, I don't like being pigeonholed and say, oh, well, he just writes about this, or I don't want people to think, oh, since he's a reverend in the COS, therefore he has to write everything on the devil and hell and whatever. And
Yeah.
that might be some of the focus of the new stuff I'm doing. I'm also throwing myself in totally different niche markets as well,
Yeah.
because I don't want people to just assume things. And it's partly because my mind's going 100 miles an hour. And a new idea will just pop into my head, so I'll create a cover right then because I know the concept of what I want to write about.
Yeah.
And as I'm finishing one or two books at the same time, I'm also dabbling into research and throwing it into the other ones. That's how I pump out so much stuff. Is I know I'm scatterbrained. I know that it's hard for me to focus on just one thing.
Yeah.
So I've learned how to harness that aspect of myself.
So what is it?
And
10 books this year, right?
I think with Hail Thyself it would be 10. I mean, I'll have it off to print by the end of this year, but it won't actually reach people's hands until January 1st, which I will admit it was a bit of a marketing, angle for the whole New Year's resolution thing. But based on the commentary on Amazon from prior buyers of the Hail Thyself set, people are leaving good reviews saying this stuff has actually helped them. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gimmicky to put it out on New Year's. I know that, but that's when people are going to purchase it more. So it's just a good business sense for me to do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, life is a gimmick, man. I mean, it's I think everything is more fun when there's a gimmick. I mean, I know some people, especially musicians. I argue about this all the time, and musicians will say that like for a stage show, my music should speak for itself, and I'm like, just growing up listening to people like King Diamond. I mean, holy hell, his whole act is a gimmick, and but for the record, if you're just listening to it in your car or your CD player and everything, that's fine. Your music should speak for itself, but on stage, I want to see a show. I want to see costumes and artwork and lights and fire and so I think gimmicks are a necessity, and I mean, I think it works for everything across the board.
Yeah, I mean, from the older classics, Kiss and Alice Cooper, they performed. They really did a great job entertaining people,
Yeah.
and they share our sentiment that you're there to entertain your fans and give them their money's worth. Because if you don't, somebody else will.
Yeah, and they do. There's always somebody else coming along.
There's always somebody else hungry for filling your spot if you don't stick with it all the time.
Oh yeah.
You slack for a moment.
I'm going to ask you about your book, The Paranormal Road Trip. I still haven't got that yet, but another one on my to-buy list. I've got a freaking little black book, just Eric Vernor, things to buy. And but what was your inspiration for that book? Was it a paranormal event that you had, that got you going, or I mean, what got you into that?
It wasn't any one moment in particular. It was while filming the Eerie America series, and we're doing spin-off books to go deeper into each of the 5 sections of the United States, because the first book through Schiffer was way too cut short. And in the last 5 years, Kevin and I had found so many other really cool places that as we were going around filming and talking to people, we thought, well, maybe it's time we put out a book just on places that are paranormal specifically related, whereas the Eerie America was spooky, weird, bizarre. It didn't have to be, paranormal.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of separate those two concepts to kind of prove to people, if you want one, get the other book, Whereas some people are so diehard into the paranormal community, they would pick up Eerie America and go, oh, well, this isn't exactly for us. It's too just weird and off the wall, Addams Family sort of deal.
I love the Addams Family.
So, in some ways, we wrote both books because we were trying to appeal to different types of fan bases, even though there's so many similarities in the type of places and the interests. Is what is it leaning towards more, as far as content-wise and the old stories. Whereas in Eerie America, we'd be talking about the history of like a murder house. But on the other hand, in Paranormal Road Trip, we would talk about the supposed hauntings that people have talked about and have just a little of the history. Yeah.
Gotcha. So have you
In fact,
yourself had a paranormal event?
one springs to mind, and I did mention it in the Paranormal Road Trip book. I first wrote about it in the book where it took place in Randolph County Infirmary. I was down there taking pictures of the place. It was our first uh, small book that had full color inside because I really wanted to do justice of the look of the place, not just by the cover. So the owner, who was on Paranormal Lockdown, Adam Kimmel, told me, "Hey, just come down whenever you want. We'll write it together through Skype," and we transcribed a lot of stuff. And I did most of the writing for him, but the story is his.
Gotcha.
But there was one time that myself and one of my editors were down there on our last day to take photos, and um, we the property's huge. It's on a highway, and you can hear the traffic out on the road. So, being in one of the upper floors, looking around, you see everything, and yet our van's outside. Our guide shows up. His car is there. He's by himself. So he comes in. He's says hi to us and everything. We knew him from earlier in the year, taking other pictures and doing the convention there. And I'm a diehard skeptic. So I'm going, yeah, okay. I'm just recording the stories, and I'm listening to him talk, and I'm filming him on my phone. I still have it, where he's telling me all the goofy stuff him and his buddies did while they're scraping the paint off the walls, getting the place ready to give tours, and because it's an attraction now. And I'm taking photos with another phone, and he's going around showing me the place. Well, our editor decides to stay up on the main floor near the front door. She's got asthma, so she can't walk the entire place very much. It's really hot during this time of year, so she just grabs a chair, starts reading a book. Well, Chris Musgrove, our tour guide and the historian of the place, takes me all the way to the very back of this old creepy asylum. Now, keep in mind, there's 300 rooms maybe in this place, 3 stories.
Oh wow.
So it's like an old high school almost. It's big. So we're in the kitchen on the lower level, more in the basement, all the way to the rear of the building, and we're starting to come forward, still on the lower level, and we hear this bang behind us coming from like the kitchen. And we look at each other, and he says, "Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I thought I did." And he had just been telling me this joke about how he had played a prank on the guy that was helping him, restore the place. And, he rang a buzzer or something like that just to scare his friend into thinking, it's dark and, there's a noise. And he's like, "Yeah, and then I came downstairs, and then I heard footsteps on the stairs behind me, and I thought it was him, and he was still, somewhere else in the building. He'd fallen asleep in his chair up there." And he's like, "And we were the only 2 in the building, and I heard somebody walking behind me." And, Chris had just got done telling me that story. And I'm recording him telling me this story, and we hear this bang. So we look at each other, we look up the steps, we call upstairs, and I'm like, "Star, is that you?" We didn't hear anything. I'm like, okay, that's weird. And by this time, we're more than halfway through towards the front of the building again. So eventually we make our way up the stairs. There she is in the hallway reading her book still. And I said something to her, and I still have my camera phone going. I'm recording her, expression, and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Was that you? Did you say something?" And she's like, "No, I thought I heard you guys yell, but we thought, she thought we were talking to each other." And, like I said, she has asthma. There's no way she could have made it through the whole building on another floor above us without us hearing her, walking above our heads, running all the way back to where she was waiting for us. And I'm like, crap. There's no other vehicles on the property, and I go do a double check too, because I'm like, Chris, he's pulling a prank on us. He wants us scared. Somebody showed up while he was giving me the tour on the other side of the building. Maybe somebody came up the back of the building and slammed the door behind us, and no, nobody else was there. And Chris and Adam both got a hold of me later, and they said, "Is that going in the book?" I'm like, "Well, it happened, so I've got to say something about it." It
Absolutely.
wasn't just a tall tale to get people to buy the book and say, "Oh, look, the skeptic is being proven wrong here," because Adam and Chris are both going, "Okay, Corvus, we're going to make a believer out of you yet," and I'm like, "I'm still not convinced. I want to know what it was."
Oh yeah.
Because they leave the doors open on all the floors of all the inmate rooms and stuff, because they say that if a door is closed, they'll know that that's what made the sound. They just have to figure out what the cause was. Was it a draft? Was it, somebody up there during that time? But they can't explain it.
Oh. Well,
So I put that same story in Paranormal Road Trip too.
yeah, man. I mean, me personally, I don't think. Well, at one point, my oldest daughter, when she was like 2 and 3, uh, we lived in an apartment, and she would, in her bedroom, she would stare off into this one corner. And every night she'd just stare off into this corner, and she would have a conversation. I mean, and it wasn't like when you play and you talk to yourself. I mean, she was answering questions. She was, and it was like flipping me the hell out. But that went on. That kind of thing went on through 2 different places we lived, and I think it stopped probably around the time when she was like 8 or 9, and
Huh.
and it was really freaky. And I remember one night I got so tired of hearing her talk in this room. I took her out of the room and put her in my bedroom, and a couple nights later, I had let her go back to her room. That next day, she comes to me and she's like, "They're mad at you." So I'm like, "Who's mad at me?" And she just kept saying that, "They're mad at you." She goes, "They said don't take me out of the room again." So I'm like, "Oh my God." Jesus Christ. So yeah, and it finally it stopped, and I think it stopped around the time when she's it seemed to stop around the time when she started lying. when she started I guess losing that innocence about her.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of that flipped me out for a few years.
Oh.
Especially when they were
And
threatening me.
this kind of stuff you ought to write out and turn it into, Hollywood blockbuster.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, let me ask you this: Is there, because you write about so much, is there anything that you haven't written about that you're reluctant not to for some reason? Or is there something that you'd want to write about that
That's
maybe
a better
you're
question. There's pretty much no topic that I wouldn't dabble into because I'm a curious sponge. I've told people before that I don't write all these things because I know it all. I write all these things because I'm curious and want to learn it all.
well, yeah, that's a well,
You know,
actually, yeah. So doing the research here, man, I tell you what, your brain
yeah,
has to be your head has to be full. God.
yeah. It's difficult to do interviews on books that I've written like 8 years ago because people just picked it up and thought, "Oh, I like this one. Come on my show and talk about Lilith or vampires or something like that." I've got so many different topics. You ought to see my personal library.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Uh, so I don't think there's any subject that I wouldn't touch. There's like 8 different books I want to write next year. So whether or not I get them all done is another story. Because a lot of them, I'm finding I get more done if I co-write a few here and there with other people because it keeps my perspective fresh. It gives me a break while they're doing something. I can go jump back on another title. And, I'm also finishing up ones that I'd started a couple years ago, because they're always in different stages. So that's why you see an avalanche of things come out from me all of a sudden. It's not like I spent 3 months just doing nothing but that one thing just to pop out another. Sometimes I'm just wrapping up stuff that I've been working on, and then it just coincides that another quickie little one came out at the same time that I was working on for 2 months. So, that's part of the trick of how I get so much, accomplished. And I don't like being bored. And, if my back's hurting from sitting writing 18 hours in a day, I'll go, off in the art studio and paint something for 5 hours, because you use a different part of your brain to do something creative versus something researchy,
Gotcha.
So jarring yourself back and forth, it keeps your focus a little fresh instead of being so tunnel vision, because I know I tend to do that.
Well, is there anything that you do at the end of the day to just relax, mellow out? I mean, other than painting and writing and things like that.
My roommates will force me to watch a movie, or I love the Lucifer TV show and The Walking Dead. Those are my guilty pleasures that I deliberately take time off for. Occasionally, I'll go out to dinner and a movie just to hang out with a few people, but I'm pretty reclusive. I enjoy shooting and movies, reading. Although, what's interesting about that little tidbit is when I was a kid, I read all the time. I was a scrawny little kid that got beat up all the time because I was the weird, different one. So books became my friends. And I love to read all the time. And now I'm a writer for a living. And I don't get to read as much because I'm too busy just skimming for notes out of other people's work and writing my own.
Yeah.
So when I can take a couple days to just grab a book off my shelf and read it cover to cover just because I want to, and not just because I'm trying to take notes. That's another thing I do for fun.
Hmm. Well, if there, all right. So I know some of these questions might be a little random, but that's how my head works. um, if there's one thing that you'd like to be remembered by, what would it be?
Hmm.
Tough one, right?
It is. I mean, I've often thought just at random weird things because I'm morbid. But one thing that pushes us to create is our own mortality. You
Yeah.
know, I've done probably 500 or 600 paintings in my lifetime, and at this point, over 30 books. So if I were to die tomorrow, I know that I've touched a lot of lives, and people would remember me because they have my shit.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, part of me would always, if I did have a consciousness that existed beyond me, and I don't believe that there's an afterlife, I'm a skeptic. So, suspend reality here. And let's pretend that Ghost Lord Corvus is watching over everybody and says, man, there was 100 more projects I wanted to get done.
Yeah.
When I grew up as a little kid, and I haven't told this story for years, so this, for your listeners, might be new perspective on my life,
Nice.
is my grandmother was telling me the story of Revelations in the Bible, and I think I was around 7, 8 years old. And I knew I was a little heretic at the time because the first thing that came out of my mouth was, well, if God comes and takes everybody, I'm going to be mad because I won't get to do the things I want to with my life.
Yep.
So there you have it.
Well,
That was me as a kid. I knew I wasn't destined to stay a Protestant.
yeah. I tell you, I mean, and that's that's one thing that I always struggle with because in my household it was, I don't want to say it was very religious, but because my mom was a Catholic and my dad was a Baptist, and it, it was just, yeah, I was pulled in all kinds of different directions and everything like that. My mom wanted me to go to the Catholic Church, which was a nightmare.
Uh,
Um, and what was funny is most of they still had a priest there that was doing the mass in Latin, and then
oh, well.
that was my first time at church. So talk about being bored as a child. I'm sitting there and I can't even understand what the guy's saying. And it got so repetitive to the
Yeah.
point where you're like up and down on on the pew and you're praying and I'm like, what? This just doesn't make sense to me. I don't even know why I'm doing it. But man, yeah. So let's switch. I got so much to go over.
Sorry.
So what is the craziest thing you've ever done?
Other than my first day on the job in bounty hunting, uh, we were going after a cartel member, and it turned out he wasn't in the house. So I'll prerequisite the story by saying that. Um, Got to remember, I'm 5'10", 130 pounds, and I'm wearing body armor, so I'm a little bulkier, and I weigh a little more, and I'm loaded down with steel plate armor as well as Kevlar. So I can take an AK-47 round to the chest, and I'll feel the impact, but it won't go through it all.
Yeah.
And despite that, the other people on my team, when we hit this house, they're all like linebacker, type guys. They tower over me. They make three of me wide. And since I was new on the job, and even though they knew my background skills, they had me out back with a shotgun. And they're like, "You stay and watch the back door. We don't want anything happening to the new guy." And so the boss has us all search different parts of the house or different outsides. And then I hear somebody call for me. So, I go to the front, and my boss is waiting, and he's like, "We need you inside." So I follow him up to the top flight of the stairs. And this is, in the not so good part of town where I came from before I pulled my life together. So I was very familiar with the place. And lo and behold, two of the guys are sitting there, they got their rifles slung, shotgun leaning against the wall, and I'm looking at them like, what the hell? And so they're like, we're in some little kid's room, full of toys, junk, broken shit everywhere. And they're looking in the closet. And I'm like, the bad guy can't be in the closet, or they wouldn't just be kind of relaxed sitting there. They're like, "We've searched everywhere in this house except the attic. We're too big to get up there. You're the little guy, so we're going to grab your ankles and hoist you up there." And all I had was a flashlight and a 45 at the time. So I popped up there like a little evil, jack-in-the-box, hoping that the guy's not waiting up there with a sawed-off just, listening to us the whole time.
Yeah.
So that's one of the most reckless, dumb things I've ever done.
Yeah, well, yeah. I tell you what, man. I think as they were raising my ankles, I'd be bending down. Like, no, I changed my mind, I'm done.
Because I had made a joke with my manager, one of our editors here at Dark Moon Press, Star, that I was all pumped up and getting dressed and strapping everything on. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm bulletproof. I can get hit with any weapon short of 50 caliber to the chest." And she says, "Oh, really?" And she hauls out and smacks me in the face. And I'm stunned, like, "What the hell was that?" And then she said, "Do you understand my point? Your face isn't protected."
Yep.
That's right before the whole, pop in the attic thing. So I was a little more not feeling quite so confident at that moment when I popped up.
Yeah, that would have been a memorable moment for me as well, man. All right, well, let's switch gears here a little bit. I think we're going to dive into the darker topic here. We're going to this is a part of the show I like to call Gospels of the Unholy. We're going to talk about Satanism.
Okay.
So, tell us the story of how you discovered the Satanic Bible.
I was living at the old house, and a bunch of friends of mine were kind of doing the whole esoteric circle of knowledge pile in my bedroom. And we'd made it into a ritual chamber, and everybody was bringing their particular books of shadows or whatever book they were studying at the moment. And I hadn't really found anything in particular that really sit well with me. I was just trying to learn from everybody at the time. So to this day, I have a broad curiosity on all paths. So, a friend of ours at the time was reading the Satanic Bible, and short of the Geraldo special years ago on TV talking about the Satanic Panic, I didn't really know what it was. And, I was reading, I think, something by Nietzsche or Rand at the time. And this guy noticed it. And, he was always, the whole, he was the bad version of a Satanist to most people. He was I can be an asshole because the Satanic Bible tells me I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he does say if you're going to be a sinner, be the best sinner on the block. So.
Yeah, but he didn't really back up what his ego was talking.
Yeah.
But anyway, he did hand me a copy, and he scribbled in it, and he said, "Hey, if this book means anything to you, teach other people what it means, pass on a copy to somebody else." So I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." but the more I read it and the more I read up on LeVay himself, it just made me realize, this guy was just writing how I was already previously thinking about the world and, life in general.
Yeah.
I would go so far as to say that the Satanic Bible was a primer for me on my book on success. I just kind of expanded it and put it in more mundane layman's terms.
Yeah.
So I was just starting to become a writer at that time. I joined the organization when I was interviewing Magus Gilmore, and he was intrigued by the concept of my first book, Embracing the Darkness, because I wanted to dedicate a chapter on Satanism. It was all on different alternative lifestyles, is what the book Embracing the Darkness was. And the more I had read up on it, then I decided at that time, because the price was going to change from $100 to $200. And because I was struggling financially in the beginning of my writing career, I wanted to jump on it before the price hike, So I sent in my money, and, it just kind of went from there. I believe this was around 2004, 2005. And, I just kept doing my thing, and, all the interviews and books that I had done, I was invited up to the Black House, I want to say 4 years ago, maybe 5, and for Walpurgisnacht, and I was just having a good time with everybody and meeting new people, meeting people that I'd known online for years, and around midnight, the Magus called me into his den, and there was Magister Lang, Paradise, Kevin Slaughter, and a few others in the room. And they were kind of like half circled in front of his fireplace while he was standing at the head with his hands behind his back. And I was like, oh crap, I'm in the principal's office.
Yeah.
Everybody had been cool with me earlier in the day, so I'm like, oh shit, what happened?
Yeah. What'd I say, right?
Yeah. And they closed the door behind him, and Magus Gilmore is like, well, we wanted to talk to you and present you with this because we feel that you've been doing a very good job speaking on our behalf. And he hands me this envelope, and as I'm starting to open it and look at it, he says, we've decided to elevate you to the priesthood. And I was stunned because I wasn't expecting it. I just was doing my thing. And he says that, well, basically, because you've been doing that, and you've been acting in the role of a reverend and doing the things that you need to do for us and helping, explain and articulate to the common people through interviews. And, I wrote the book, I, Lucifer. I went on the BET channel's The Lexi Show, which is a Baptist, African-American program of all things, talking about what is Satanism to her. And he cited those as, major examples that I'd really done well in, the role of the priesthood. And he said that just keep doing what you're doing, basically. Yeah. And, I went home and hung it up on the wall here. And, look at it once in a while, and it keeps reminding me that, I'm on the right track.
No, yeah. I'll tell you.
That's how I went homeless and what the hell is this book to, being what I am now.
Hey, man, that's great. So I imagine when you first read the Satanic Bible and realized that you were a Satanist, most people don't go screaming it, to the mountain and everything. So, but did you at one point tell your family, and how they react?
That was interesting. Because I came from a really awkward background. At that time, my older brother didn't really know too much about me. We had met a few times later in life. So I don't think he really knows unless he follows me on Facebook. My uncle was just kind of put off by it, but he didn't ask too many questions. I explained the basics to him, and he just kind of went, oh. My grandparents had died at that point, so there wasn't really anybody left in my family to really care. I guess in some ways, I have the luxury of being a public person with my career, because the more attention I get for the things that I do, the better it helps other people who can't be out.
Yeah.
I realize that at certain points it probably has hindered my career in television or whatever because it freaks out the normals too much.
Yeah.
You know, um, but at the same time, I do like the fact that for the goths, the witches, the Satanists, people in the vampire community, all these different people that I wrote about years ago, um, are thankful that I can and am willing to, you know, be in the forefront for them in interviews to speak on their behalf of what it is that they actually believe in, where they're coming from, what their past history is, how it's, relatable in modern society. So although it may have cost me certain elements of a career, it may have actually helped me in other ways too, because it got me more popularity by
Yeah.
their behalf, and that's why I have so many fans that follow me.
Oh yeah. I tell you, I definitely, I read it for the first time in 2007, and it took me a long time to pick it up. I was going through the bookstore, and like I said, my family had pushed, religion on me pretty heavy, so it was ingrained in me. But I was always curious. I was always curious on witchcraft and especially witchcraft. That got my motor going. The idea of it, the mysticism of it, and everything. And I was in Barnes and Noble and came across the book, and man, I had this trembly, eerie feeling. I was like, man, I want to touch this book, but I'm like, you know. I can't let anybody see me do this, So it took me a couple times, but I finally bought it, and I remember I read it in the corner of I had an outbuilding for a studio. I'd go out there for, a half hour or so every night, and I'm reading it, and it was just constantly, holy shit, this is me, and and after I got done reading it, I was thinking a lot about I shouldn't be, I should recognize, how I feel now, but I was like, my family is going to totally kick me to the curb. I mean, all of them. They're just gonna, make me an outcast. So out of that fear, I kind of pushed it back, and I tell you honestly, I didn't fully just let everything come out until about a year ago. About a year ago, I was like, I'm tired of living a lie. I'm tired of telling people, I think one way when I really don't, and it just built up and built up until the time where I just got sick of it. But I'm one of them people. Like once I make a decision, I scream it. You know, and that's what I did. I told everybody. I told my mom, dad, and I was like, I'm a Satanist. And of course, it's oh my God, he's possessed by the devil, and it was a crazy time. I think I think my dad has accepted it, but my mom not so much. Not so much. But
I'm so glad.
absolutely, I've found a lot more once I reached out on Facebook to like-minded people like yourself and everything. I felt better because I was like I didn't feel alone, with it, and because I absolutely from where I live, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and it's all country folk kind of around me. It's holy Bibles everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm from the Bible. I get it. It's just I'm in a bigger city, so
yeah,
um, I will say that as you grow more into it and have been doing things, of this topic for such a long time, there is a lot of truth to what the elders in the hierarchy will say, that the less you recognize someone for being a Satanist in public, the more profound of one they are, because we don't have to go over the top. The black fingernails and, the long flowy capes or whatever. You
yeah,
know, uh, we're harder to spot because we've learned how to adapt and kind of assimilate and fit in. You
oh
know,
yeah,
not that we don't have our own unique look and everything. If you take a look at some of the other hierarchy members, just because we're in black suits doesn't mean we don't stand out a bit.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
oh yeah,
we don't lose that unique, different, nuance about us, but there certainly is a little bit more of a change
yeah,
in demeanor, how you carry yourself, sort of thing. I think it's a natural progression.
yeah. Yeah, I can say if anything, one thing I've recognized about most of the people that I've connected with is that their constant wanting to be better has made me
Hmm.
want to be better. So, I mean that's one major positive that has come from connecting with like-minded people like that. So,
Yeah.
if you had one question, or see, let's say if you could ask Anton LaVey one thing, what would it be?
Oh wow. I've actually thought about that before because it's like when I when I joined, he would already had passed, and making the connections that I had and meeting the Magus a few times now, it's just like now you bump into him and just sit down and chat with him. You know, you're more on a personal level. It's not, oh my God, there's the Magus.
Yeah.
But with Magus LeVay, it probably would be a little more different because he's the guy who started it all. And I guess one of the biggest things I'd want to know is what made him willing to take the chance
Hmm.
to be the first one to be so blatantly out there what we are, that you still got that same reaction from people 50 years after,
Yeah.
you know whereas he was the guy who first ripped off the covers to the world and nobody knew what he was really getting at.
Yeah.
I'd want to know what made you have that kind of panache to pull that off.
Yeah. And he was
you know
real. He was real dramatic about it. I mean, he broke out the cape and the collar and the sword, and I mean he was, yeah. So he was very dramatic about it.
I know in the beginning he needed to be, because that's the only way you're going to get attention for something that's new,
Yeah.
is to be dramatic. But people already know we exist, so we don't have to go over the top.
Yeah. Yeah. I did get a question from one person.
What's that?
He said, and I don't know, I haven't found anybody else who knows yet, but he said at the end of the Satanic Bible, it says Yankee Rose.
Yeah.
He wants to
Uh,
know what that means.
there's a lot of conflicting information out there. I think to some degree, LeVay put it in there on purpose to get people to ask the question. It's kind of a subtle joke on people of, what does he mean? Because he wanted to be remembered for something. He had a great sense of humor, so I think he just did it to, kind of rattle people's chain, get them to think, get them to ask questions. Now, you might want to ask, the Magus or High Priestess Nadramia if they know what he meant, because I haven't figured it out for sure.
I might just do that. Hopefully, I don't know if you're going to be at the event in New York that's coming up, but I'm going to be there. So hopefully I
I
get to.
heard there was another.
Go ahead.
I hadn't heard that there was another New York event coming up.
Yeah, January 26th. Adam Cardone is throwing an event, and it's presented by the church.
Okay. I'm kind of behind on a lot of news, whether it's mainstream or otherwise. I've been so focused in my, you know,
Oh
my
yeah,
own writing deadlines.
it's called the Nude Witch Review, and
Okay.
yeah, it's going to be at the Slipper Room, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun and everything. And I know Dr. Johnson's going to be there and everything. It's kind of a celebration party for his book, The Satanic Warlock.
I still want to get a copy of that. I know he had talked to me about it at the original DC conclave, and you know, Bob's a great guy. He's been really at it for a long time, even before the old Nick magazine came out.
Yeah, I've spoken to him a couple times through email, and he congratulated me on the show, and had some very kind words, and that meant a lot too. So, but I was lucky enough to get a copy. I was just petrified that it was going to sell out so fast. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I got myself a hard copy, luckily. All right. Well, let's see. I'm going to go a little bit more into personal life, if that's all right with you.
Sure. I'm pretty much an open book. Nothing really intimidates me.
All right. So, what would you say your greatest vice is?
Being too stubborn. Sometimes it backfires. I mean, I try to harness it in a positive direction to not let anything stop me, but sometimes it does cause me to do really dumb things too, and I don't veer off course when I should. I don't smoke. I rarely drink. Usually, when I do, it's with a meal. Pop some wine. Um, so, I never picked up a lot of bad habits, mostly because I watched what it does to other people coming from a household of alcoholics and drug abusers. So they kind of showed me at a very young age of what not to do. And, honestly, it's because I'm a cheap bastard and I didn't want to waste the money.
I know how you feel there, man. I see these people buying 2 or 3 packs of cigarettes that are $7 a pop, and they're buying that every day. I'm like, man, I would
Holy
have to have a
cow.
I would have to have a part-time job just to smoke. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
like if I was an alcoholic and addicted to cigarettes, like, my family, yeah, you add up all that money over the years, you could buy a car.
oh yeah, oh yeah, it's insane, man. So all right. So what's one thing you think you waste too much time on? Is there anything?
Probably. I mean, I could accomplish more than I do if I didn't scroll through Facebook and constantly try to see what questions people were asking me or what comments they made off of my posts, because I don't want to ignore my fans,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
you know. But sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I should just X out of Facebook so I can finish my writing, instead of going back and forth between the two, because that just takes me off my flow so sometimes, like, late at night when other people are just kind of dropping off when they're going to bed or to a job or whatever, I'll notice there's less people and I'll be like, okay, I'll sign out.
Yeah.
So I think social media is one of the things I have a hard time turning off, because my brain is always telling me you should be working, when the other half of my brain is saying you should stay connected to the fans so they don't think that you forgot about them today. you
Yeah.
know
Oh yeah.
I guess maybe my vice is I'm too paranoid, yeah, and it takes away from my productivity.
All right. So well, you've already kind of answered one question. You said that now The Walking Dead, is that your favorite TV show, or do you have what's your favorite TV show?
It's a really hard toss up because I've followed The Walking Dead for so long. I'm really engrossed in the entire progression of it. So it's definitely up there in my guilty pleasure of mindless mayhem and destruction. A friend of mine, when we were out shopping the other day at Walmart during the day, which I almost never do, I prefer to be out at night when I am out because there's less crowds, less regular people, and stay away from the herd. And my friend's having a panic attack, and she's like, how can you be so calm when there's a million people here and the parking lot's full, and everybody's supposedly in a good holiday festive mood, but everybody's rude to each other, cutting each other off, trying to grab that last present. I'm like, well, partly because I'm imagining that we're in an episode of The Walking Dead and I get to draw and start shooting all these people.
Nice. That's awesome.
So, yeah, that's how I handle my stresses in big crowds, is I put my mind somewhere else. Um, but if I had to pick what is my favorite, I would probably say the Lucifer show on Fox. Because to me, the way Lucifer acts about regular people, how he carries himself, his ego, how he dresses, even immaculate, his wealth, and he just doesn't care how he appears to other people, and he's kind of oblivious. That I'm a little bit that way myself when it comes to the mundane people. You know, it's not that I hate them that much, even though my earlier statement may prove otherwise. Um, but you know, I like people, individuals, but I hate the masses of people, what they represent and what they've been capable of throughout the ages.
Yeah.
That's how I'm trying to clarify.
Yeah.
So those two shows, for different reasons, stand out to me. Lucifer embodies what I want to be like. I want to become even wealthier and more powerful. Like he owns the nightclub and the fancy car and all that. Everybody loves him, kind of thing. So he gives me that ideal to aim for. And I enjoy his snarky witticisms, but I also like The Walking Dead for just the violence and the whole, the world's truly gone to hell and we did it to ourselves sort of feel.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the direction symbolically we're all headed for anyway. But people like us are going to survive simply because we're more intelligent and, we can adapt to things.
Yeah. Well, I've seen The Walking Dead quite a bit, and I kind of dropped off last year. I haven't seen any of this season yet.
This season was good,
but
and
Lucifer,
the next one coming up.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it did kind of slack off there for a bit, but the new season and how they're gearing up for the mid-season startup again, it's definitely worth picking back up where you left off.
Yeah, I need to get back to it. But Lucifer, I haven't seen one episode. I've never watched it.
You're in for a treat. If you can, try to find older episodes or wait till it comes out on DVD.
Yeah. See, my thing is with some of these shows, and I've run into this before, is I usually wait until it's been on for like 4 or 5 years, because usually then I know it's safe to watch. Because I've started watching shows in the first season and loved it, and then they cancel it, and then I just get pissed.
Yeah.
So
I'd be upset if they cancel this one because he epitomizes what we stand for.
Yeah.
He even looks at some pseudo Satanists and says, "Are you people out of your minds?" When he interrupts this ritual that they're trying to do, and he's like, "Do you really think I would respond to your idiocracy?" Kind of thing. And I'm like, "Yes, that's exactly." So they're doing a good job with it overall.
Sweet.
It's Hollywood fictionalized, so they're gonna throw some stupid crap in there, but overall, I really like it.
I gotta check it out.
They could have done much worse with it.
So, if there was one fictional character that you could bring to life, who would it be?
I never stopped to think about that.
I aim to stump.
That's a really good one.
My first guess said Batman. He would he would love to hang out with the billionaire playboy. So
yeah, I mean I definitely was a fan of that, especially the Christian Bale version. It really captured how I saw him. A lot of my artwork, I tell people online, is greatly influenced by the comic books of how I grew up. So yeah, Batman would definitely be one of them. If I had to flip to the other side, I'd say the Punisher from Marvel. Kill all the bad people, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure there's better classic examples, but I just can't think of them at the moment.
That's all right. So
I'll think of it.
Yeah, you'll think of it later, and you'll message me like, "Damn it, I should have said this,"
Yeah.
So music-wise, what's your favorite artist?
Favorite. I'm pretty narrow when it comes to my genre. I like more ambient gothic, like Typo Negative, B&V Nation, stuff like that. A little more older school. Anders Manga is one of my absolute favorites right now.
Nice.
The Church of Satan Emporium used to sell his stuff. I know he's still putting things out. But if you look him up on YouTube, Anders Manga, he does a lot of very dark, edgy goth electronica, but he started out as a filmmaker, and you can tell that in some of his videos. But he's very edgy and deep vibratos, and very, very powerful, emotionally evocative, I guess you could say.
Nice. Yeah, I tell you, you had me at the typo negative. I was a big typo negative fan. I was kind of heartbroken when Peter passed, man.
You know, a friend of mine knew him. They were doing the Milwaukee Metal Fest, and they invited me to come to hear him play because they were going to open for Typo, and I couldn't make it that year. And I'm like, how about next year? I mean, I'd really love to, but money was tight that year, and it was the year before Peter died, and my friend Charlie tells me that they were on his tour bus, hanging out with him before it all,
Oh,
the show started, and that would have been my chance to meet him because they would have had me on the bus with him.
man,
So I was
yeah.
like, yeah. So
I tell you
lesson there,
what,
folks, is get opportunities, take them.
yeah. I had never even heard of them before. I actually went. I think it was back in 1992. I went to see Pantera, and Typo Negative was opening for them. I'd never heard of them before, but man, when they came on and there was just that slow, boomy sound, and this dude was a beast. He had no shirt on. He was wearing this thick chain for the strap on his bass. I was like, damn, that's gotta hurt. And he's just the man for even wearing that. So, but the music was fantastic. I mean, it was so
Oh yeah,
doomy, and I'd never heard anything like it before.
yeah. They definitely stood out for their time, and they're still classic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think we're gonna wrap it up here in a few minutes. Everything we've been at this for like an hour and 10 minutes or so. One final question: what is your favorite quote and why?
Hmm. Yeah, some good. I think the one that I put in the beginning of Hail Thyself was the one by Aristotle on "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence is not an act, but a habit. The reason why that keeps coming up in my mind is it's a reminder that every day that we do things or we think things, uh, it's not a game. Everything we think, everything we do, everything we don't do has consequences,
Oh yeah.
and it just reminds me to stay sharp. You know.
Hey, nice man. That sounds great. All right. I want to thank you very much for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. I'm probably gonna hit you up sometime next year with some more goofy questions.
Hopefully, I'll have quicker answers for some of them because you're good.
You know what I'll do? I'll write. I'll get them all down and I'll email them to you so you know what's coming.
Then I'll look even smarter to people, huh?
They'll be like, "Holy shit! I can't believe he knows what friggin' fictional character to bring to life just like that. It was amazing." But do you have anything you'd like to say to the viewers out there?
Um, Other than the catchphrase by most of us is "ever forward."
Ever forward,
You know,
absolutely.
Want to keep people always on their toes, always live life to the fullest, enjoy every moment, whatever it is that you do that makes you happy. As long as it doesn't trample the rights and feelings of somebody else, go for it. You only live once.
Absolutely.
Make it.
Absolutely. All right, Eric. Well, it's been fun and everything, and to you all out there, I want to thank you
All
guys
right.
for watching, and we've got some great guests coming up. I've got Hydra M. Star coming up, Heidi Knights, Gavin Badley, and just more and more people. I've got David Sinclair Smith. He's a great musician from Australia, and some other music reviews, and Mary Zimmer and Paul Allender from White Empress. He's going to be on. So got a ton of people coming up and everything like that. But it's been great. And in the meantime, to all you out there, stay unholy.